Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Maddie, let me know if I can start.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nikki Trasmonte with the Maryland Department of Transportation, and I will be the moderator of today's webinar on working to improve your commute, where we'll learn about MDOT's efforts to keep the Baltimore region moving. So we have several guest speakers here today from our different MDOT modes. And for some housekeeping rules, I want to address that this session will be recorded and we will send a link to the recording in a few days. So during the webinar, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. And to be mindful of our time, we will address those questions at the end of this webinar. So just a quick overview of today's session. We will first talk about keeping the Baltimore region moving, and then we will go into the Maryland Transportation Authority's presentation, and then transition into Maryland State Highway Administration's presentation, and then last but not least, the Maryland Transit Administration presentation. And then I will be sharing about Commuter Choice Maryland, how commuters can get involved and how they can participate in the program, and then we have time for some Q&A. Next slide, please. Okay, so we actually have a poll for our webinar audience today. If you could please wait until the poll question pops up on your screen to answer the poll. The question is, who are you representing today? So you can choose your answer in the poll or in the chat. Myself, a commuter. Another option is employer or business. Another option is state, regional, local agency, federal agency, community association, or other. So it looks like some answers are coming in. We have some people from state and regional local agencies. We have some people as commuters, some employers, other. So we have a great mix of a different audience group. So that's really great. Yeah, it looks like a lot of us are from different associations, which is a great diverse group of people to hear this webinar presentation. So the next slide, please. So we have another poll for our audience. It is, how has your commute changed since March 2024? Again, as a reminder, please feel free to answer the poll once it pops up on your screen, and then you could start typing in your responses as well in the chat. So some of the different options include, I am still driving. My commute has increased 10 to 25 minutes long. I am still driving. My commute has increased more than 30 minutes long. I am teleworking more. I am taking transit more often. I have joined a carpool or van pool. I have shifted my work and commute times to avoid or minimize time in congestion, or other. So I'll give it some time for some answers to roll in. So it looks like some people, their commute hasn't changed. And it looks like we have a mix of different responses. Some people, their commute has increased 10 to 25 minutes. Some has increased more than 30 minutes. Some people are teleworking more, using different modes. I see transit, carpool, and van pool. And a lot have shifted their work commute due to congestion, and they're trying to minimize that. So it looks like the majority of people have really experienced a 10 to 25 minute longer commute. So next slide, please. So just to address that poll question, you can see that commuting is an issue a lot of us experience, especially our webinar audience here today. To set some context, a lot of commuters and employers are experiencing this daily. Many of us sit in traffic. It can be very stressful. And also maintaining and operating and insuring a car is not cheap. So when you add congestion and environmental impacts, costs can grow more, and eventually some people get tired of their commute, and this can cause employee turnover as well. So we wanted to highlight one recent Maryland statistic where Maryland ranks number 2 in the longest work commutes in the US. So it is a problem that we all face, and it's an issue for Maryland commuters. So next slide, please. Additionally, many of you on this webinar know and have experienced ever since the FSK bridge collapse, many people are experiencing longer work commutes, so averaging over 20 to 30 minutes extra of travel time. You can see in the chat, many people have experienced 15 to 20 minutes and even more, so it's definitely an issue we all face. So next slide, please. Just to recap, so in this presentation, we will first have MDTA cover commuter activities related to the Key Bridge, and then we'll have SHA discuss their efforts in helping with congestion and commuting in the Baltimore region. And then we'll have MTA transit services and plans for the Baltimore region. And lastly, I'm going to give an overview of some commuting tools from Commuter Choice Maryland. So next slide, please. So I'd like to welcome today's guest speakers. We're fortunate enough to have 3 outstanding speakers, including Bruce Gartner from MDTA, Ray Moravec from SHA, and Fred Lippert from MTA. So before each presentation, I'll provide a bit more background on the speakers so you get to know their role and their expertise. Next slide, please. Can everyone hear me well? I just want to make sure. Okay, I see something in the chat. Thank you. So I'd like to first introduce Bruce Gartner. He has been the executive director at the Maryland Transportation Authority, or MDTA, since January of 2024, where he leads the 1,700 employee agency that finances, constructs, operates, preserves, and improves the state's 8 toll facilities, including the Drive Easy MD Maryland tolling system and the nationally accredited Maryland Transportation Authority Police. So Bruce, if you want to take it away, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maddie. Again, my name is Bruce Gartner, and it's a real pleasure to be here today. I'd like to first start by thanking all my MDOT colleagues and those from the other modal organizations, because this recovery effort for the Key Bridge has been truly a department-wide and region-wide effort and experience. But before talking about traffic, I did want to provide an update for the rebuild project. And as you can see on this slide, the new bridge will be a cable-stayed bridge once complete, and it will have that higher vertical clearance above the federal channel and a wider distance between those 2 main spans. That provides more space for large ships to pass underneath. And just to be clear that these are federal Coast Guard permit standards for the height and the width, and then those the pier protection that I'll talk about a little bit are as a result of national guidelines. And I want to go through the process of how we've come to the design and the most recent estimates on cost and schedule. But we have made a lot of progress in the last 14 months since we brought our design builder on board. We've done more in the last 14 months than many projects of comparable size have done in 5 to 7 years to get to the point where we do have a 70% design. We have demolished a large portion of those original structures. That's underway. There's been concrete removed, bridge deck removed, and they're now removing steel girders. Pre-construction work on the bridge did begin in January, and test pilot program began this fall in September. You've all probably seen either on social media or regular media outlets the large cranes and barges in the river. Those assist in driving our test piles that go hundreds of feet down into the soil below the mud line. The crews are also using a large load frame to push down the piles with significant weight, and those will collect data and confirm that the piles in the soil can carry the weight of the new bridge. The new bridge is projected to open to traffic in late 2030. And while I realize that is a long way from now, we want to assure you that we are moving as quickly as possible to undertake this massive effort. and while also looking at these different solutions to traffic in the Baltimore region. So I want to talk first about the three main stages of the build process. Completing the bridge and the fender protection foundations is that first focus. Building the bridge towers that you see there, they're over 600 feet tall. The World Trade Center is a comparison, just to think about the height of those spans. Our original estimates had those at about 500 feet. When we went to a wider width to accommodate the analysis that we did on the data regarding the vessels, we had to go taller with the towers. That made the process for the rebuild longer and more expensive. And then as we build out the main span, we'll connect to the approach spans. And that progressive design team has developed some ways where we will be working across the span of the river. At some points, there would be 6 different construction projects going on related to the approach spans, the towers, those tieback towers that you see right at the edge of the water with the two supports close together. And that will all result in that late 2030 opening for the new bridge. So next I wanted to talk a little bit, I can go advance the slide, talk a little bit about another update that we're going to be doing on the 16th from 6:30 to 7:30. At that point, I'll go into even more detail along with our chief engineer, Jim Harkness, on the rebuild effort, and there'll be more details to share about what I've just summarized very briefly for this meeting. If you're interested in more details, there's also, you can register on the event at keybridgerebuild.com or by scanning this QR code on the screen in front of you right now. You can also sign up on our site for text alerts and notifications about the progress of the project on our website. So to talk about the traffic a bit, the next slide, this is where we're seeing those heavy commute times in the southbound direction and the northbound direction. So it is those morning commutes Monday through Thursday in that southbound direction, and then coming northbound, it's primarily in that evening period, the 2 to 7 on Monday through Thursday, and then Friday is just a whole different day with commute patterns as people take off for the weekend and impact the rush hour. The original Key Bridge was a vital connection point for many Baltimore drivers, so we greatly appreciate motorists' patience and cooperation for seeking alternative routes where they can. And with that effort underway, dealing with the tunnels as I drive through those tunnels every day. It has been a challenge, and we do encourage you to think about your trips before you take them, and check your apps every day. That sometimes incidents in particular can cause significant challenges. Last year we did launch a Harbor Crossings webpage to provide resources for heavy commute times, and you can visit that at mdtamaryland.gov and click on Harbor Crossings for more information. So on the next slide, I'd like to address a little bit about what we're doing about congestion for our part, and then I'll soon be turning it over to my colleagues. But while the traffic has increased in the tunnels, MDOT has accomplished a lot in the past 18 months where we can. We're actively monitoring the current traffic patterns with the help of our colleagues at SHA and collaborating with local agencies to identify strategies or temporary solutions to reduce congestion. Last year, we announced the tolls were suspended on that 695 exit at Broning Highway on the Dundalk side of the bridge, and that will be those tolls will be suspended until the rebuild is completed, hopefully taking that pressure off some of the local roads in that area. Northbound on 895, the Travel Plaza traffic pattern was modified back in May of 24 to reduce those merging conflicts. And we've also been doing conversion of the electronic tolling. So we now have our tolling gantries north of the tunnel, and they are no longer in the old toll plaza configuration. Most recently, we've done some new pavement markings that were installed on I-95 south of the Fort McHenry Tunnel to better facilitate traffic flow near 395 and the Maryland 295 interchanges. And we've also recently did a reconfiguration of northbound 895 right at the Ritchie Spur, where Route 2 and 997 join in to reduce some stress at that merge point, particularly for those northbound in the evening commutes. So finally, road closures, we're working to make sure that we're not impacting the facilities with our different projects within the tunnels. So thank you for your time, and I'll encourage you all to consider the many options under commuter choice that'll be talked about in a bit. And I thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for that great overview of MDTA's work. And now we'll be hearing from Ray Moravec, who is the Deputy Chief Engineer for Planning, Engineering, and Real Estate for the Maryland State Highway Administration, or SHA. He began his career with SHA in 1990 after earning his civil engineering degree from Penn State. Ray's work spans federal, state, and local projects with expertise in highway and transit studies, ADA compliance, bicycle and pedestrian design, traffic operations, environmental documentation, and stakeholder coordination. So Ray, if you'd like to take it away.
Thank you very much, and thankful for being here to sort of give some of the great updates the team's been working on, emphasizing that this is really a collaborated effort with MDTA, MTA, all our modal partners, the Secretary's office, as well as the local communities with Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and others. And as Bruce started the presentation with sort of showing what the rendering for the proposed new structure for FSK is, we'd like to say from SHA side, we want to get back to this picture where we actually have our dynamic message side showing access to the key bridge and minimal to no delay getting across. So looking forward to that in the future. If you go to the next slide. I just want to highlight a lot of the key things that we've been doing since the collapse of the FSK bridge. And one of the key things there are improvements to our signage. Really a big effort that was undertaken by the team, really looking and taking an inventory of that sign, which ones we need to remove or cover associated with that, and to make sure we get folks going in the right direction. We've made several modifications throughout the area. This includes not only signage associated with the key bridge, but also some of the key destinations there like Glen Burnie and Dundalk, and how that directional signage changed as part of that effort. We've worked with those local partners as well on a lot of the navigational apps that you receive to make sure, you know, we see issues or other things that came up as people put in those destinations, where they're going, how it's taking them, trying to direct them to the main routes, and minimize as much of the neighborhood cut through traffic and other things as we have the ability to do with those limitations. A key part here also is directions to the port traffic, making sure people are getting to Port of Baltimore, as well as Trade Point Atlantic and others, getting that truck traffic and other deliveries in the right direction, working with the trucking industry on notifications and awareness. And that's not just here in the Maryland region. That was actually working with neighboring states and others for those trips. And one key part there that we've heard a lot, and I know everyone's concerned about, is hazardous materials. They're not able to use the I-95 and 895 tunnels, so really directing them around the west side and continuing to move that freight safely throughout the region on the routes that are designated from that standpoint, working with our permitting agencies and others for several of those hauls, as well as large hauls or others that may be occurring within the region. So really working closely, doing those modifications with MDTA and our SHA team to get the signage changed. If you go to the next slide. One of the other key areas is working on traffic signals and mobilization. You know, that's a key part as well, as folks are taking other routes and where they're going. We really looked at that area. We made several adjustments immediately on that first day in the field to try and help with flow of traffic as best we can with adjustments to signal timing. We've continued to work on that as time's gone by, and we're seeing the changes to commute and travel patterns in the region. We've looked at more than 30 intersections along several routes in the region and changed signal timing at over 34 intersections as part of that, and continuing to look at that as we go. We have done some upgrades to enable some vehicle detection at some of those intersections in order to help optimize those signals to the greatest extent. And really looking at all of those locations and continuing to make improvements throughout as we see those adjustments to travel corridors. One of the key things that many people don't see, and just awareness of things that we do, is that also improving that communication so that we have that continued monitoring and things that we can do to update those things remotely without having to have field crews sent out, and just trying to meet those needs and keep the flow as best as we can with the congestion in the area. And this really, I really want to reemphasize and really thank our partners on this. This has been a collaborative effort working with MDTA, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County for these efforts, not only for the state roads, but also for the local roadway network as part of the effort. Go to the next slide. One of the other key things that we have kept the focus on is really that incident management. It's one thing for the flow of traffic, but if something happens and something goes wrong, how do we get vehicles safely off the roadway so that all lanes are open and we're able to move forward? We did increase the amount of our emergency vehicle presence, both on SHA side and MDTA's efforts, and work closely with MDTA police, Maryland State Highway or Maryland State Police, as well as the local jurisdictions, so that we can safely get folks off, where there is an incident, get them off the road, get traffic lanes open, and hopefully minimize those delays. We do a lot of work with the dynamic message signs, really trying to commute to make people aware, communicate what those travel times are, and helping them make those adjustments as necessary. And continue to monitoring that from our statewide operations center so that we can get that immediate response and turnaround and that communication, which is usually critical. A lot of things that go on behind the scenes that hopefully you don't see, so that we keep free-flowing traffic out there to the greatest extent that we can. If you go to the next slide. One of the other things there is, of course, commercial vehicle outreach. We hear a lot about the issues associated with commercial trucks, the ports, and local deliveries as well. We want to make sure Amazon gets your holiday presents to you on time. So we've really been working to identify safe detour routes and that we have those vehicles heading where they should be going. We continue to work with that from an enforcement standpoint as well, and to monitor where we may even have folks that are parking or laying over. We've tried to identify parking spaces and other things for vehicles so that they're not parking on the side of the road and able to not become a hazard or interfere with operations. So continue to work with the trucking industry and our federal partners as well on that side. We have done some outreach with the industry with different web postings and putting QR codes out there for them to get information on those preferred routes to times of day, like Bruce had mentioned, where we're less congested as well, and to really help make sure that once again, that the hazardous vehicles carrying hazardous materials have the right designated routes and can do that safely, and try to minimize their delay as much to keep the flow of goods moving within the region. And we're continuing to look at funding and other things to help with that enforcement and monitoring, as well as our work that our enforcement officers are already doing today. Really appreciate their efforts on that front. And like I said, this is a regional issue as well. It's not just a Maryland issue. We've been working closely with the neighboring states to coordinate that, and that includes even layover and parking spots in other states so that they're aware. And as we prepare for winter as well, if there are snow incidents or other things, giving them safe places where vehicles could rest and not cause any issues on our highways. If you go to the next slide. And the final part there is our continued day-to-day, and just reminding everyone who are traveling in the region, our statewide operations center and our CHART program, which is our Coordinated Highways Action Response Team. You can visit their site. We do have the link here. We can put that into the chat, but you can visit the state website there and see that information as well. Really making people aware of what's happening, the traffic patterns, where we're seeing incidents happen so people can get to the appropriate route and not just be relying on Google and Waze to get them there. So making sure we have that open communication and really working closely with those regional partners, and really appreciate the full team's efforts in this coordinated effort throughout the process. And with that, I'll turn it back.
Thank you, Ray, for that informative presentation on SHA's efforts and their collaborative work with other entities. So last but not least, we have Fred Lipper, who is the Director of Baltimore Regional Planning at the Maryland Transit Administration, or MTA. Fred is a professional landscape architect with over 18 years of diverse experience in urban design, landscape architecture, and transportation site design projects. Fred is passionate about rethinking existing transportation systems and their influence on how we inhabit cities, towns, and rural areas. He believes strongly in designing for equity and inclusion with the aim to provide communities with resources and tools to be able to choose high quality transit. So I'll pass it over to Fred now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fred Lippert. As you heard, I'm with the Maryland Transit Administration. And at MTA, we think the most efficient way of dealing with traffic congestion is getting folks out of those cars and into some of our transit options. And this slide, you can see what that's all about, because what we're really talking about here is space, and the space that's taken up in the roadway. So we like to provide options for folks to make more space, and that's through our various modes. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see what Maryland Transit Administration has to offer. Obviously, we have an extensive core bus network here in the Baltimore area, but we also have light rail. Folks oftentimes are surprised that we have a metro, but it's there and operational. We also have mobility for those very specific needs for folks who need to get around. Of course, we've got the MARC and Commuter bus. So a lot of modes, 6 service modes to be in all. And actually, we're the 13th largest transit system based on total ridership in the United States. So we've got quite a system for you, and we'd like to get you into it. Next slide. Of course, the way you get around on transit is first to be able to know where you're going, and that requires a map. And so we have a couple maps on here. So if we advance a couple more times, we'll see the various maps that are out there and online. And I'll give you a link real quick so that you can get to those maps pretty easily there in the chat. But maybe a static map isn't your thing. Maybe you're ready for something a little more 21st century, and we're able to provide. So if we advance to the next slide, we've got a transit app. And in fact, MTA has made the Transit Royale, or at least the upper version of this app, available to everyone for free, and it gives you a lot of options. It's fantastic in allowing you to track your transit. If you're waiting on a bus, you can see if it's coming, how long you've got. You can plan your trips, and it's even connected to the Charm Pass. So gone are the days of searching around for some coins or a dollar bill so that you can get on transit. You can actually do it from your phone. So the Charm Pass makes it really easy to get your tickets and board and get where you're going. Next slide, please. So let's take a real quick look. We're not going to go in depth, but I'm going to put in the chat a link to where it will go into a much deeper dive on this transit app. But just for folks who've never seen it, here's just a quick slide. This is sort of the interface. You're able to put in a destination, and it'll give you the closest transit lines to you and tell you how to get to the nearest stop. And so what you're looking at is some of the interface there, and one important tip, of course, is to make sure your location is enabled because that's going to really help you out. The link I'm putting in right now into the chat, starting around 16 minutes if you wanted to advance directly to it, we'll go over this app quite a bit, and so it'll give you all the features and functions of it and how you actually go about planning a trip and using it. Next slide. So just zooming in on this for a quick second, we can see that in this particular example, the route name shows up, and that's CityLink Silver. It gives you some times for various buses that are on their way and how long you've got before you better be out by that stop to catch your bus. It gives you the stop name. So there's a bunch of information that's neatly tucked into this app that really helps get you around. Next slide, please. Some of the other measures that we are working on at the MTA is, of course, potential commuter service. We're exploring potential connections from White Marsh, Essex, down to Trade Point Atlantic. We're also instituting a lot of transit priority initiatives. These are like targeted interventions and investments that help improve the bus reliability, the speeds, reduce travel delays at our bus stops. If you wanted a visual for what I'm talking about, if you've ever seen those red painted lanes that are dedicated for the bus to travel on, these are some of the types of investments that the TPI or Transit Priority Initiatives are doing. And the whole point there is to make it safer, more efficient for our transit users. Next slide, please. Finally, we've got a couple things here to look at. This is the Be More Bus Plan and the RTP update. These are our medium to longer range planning that we're doing in order to improve our service. And in that first one on the left, you can see that there's a lot of yellow there. Well, that yellow represents very frequent transit, 10 minutes or better on our bus system. And that's implementing some of the ideas that we have put into the Be More Bus Plan will improve service. The green is 15 minutes or better. So if you go out to the stop, you just have to show up, and within 10 minutes, you'll get a bus. That's the plan here. You can read more about these plans, and I'll put that link in the chat as well on both of these. The second one on the right there, that is a longer range, 25-year horizon, but we are in the first update. So this is the RTP, or the Regional Transit Plan. This was done in 2020, and now we have just updated it, which we are required to do every 5 years. And the idea here is really to look at what routes and what corridors would benefit the most from continued investment in transit, where we'd see the most bang for our buck. And so that plan is available in the chat as well. And I think that wraps it up for me and MTA. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much, Fred, for giving that great overview of MTA services and the different transit available in the greater Baltimore region. So now I'll be sharing about the Commuter Choice Maryland program. If you want to do the next slide, please. Okay, so to set some context on the work that we do at Commuter Choice, one way we can improve commuting in the region is through TDM work, or transportation demand management. So it's a use of strategies to encourage travelers to maximize the efficiency of a transportation system, reduce congestion, and lower vehicle emissions. So referencing back to that slide that Fred showed earlier, we are promoting people using different modes of transportation other than driving alone to reduce congestion. So next slide, please. Just a quick overview and a recap of our program. We were relaunched in 2018 under the Maryland Department of Transportation. Our main goal is to have less people driving alone. and to shift those modes of transportation. So we also work with employers to set up commuter benefits for their employees, and we encourage the public to use better commuting options. And we also manage statewide programs. So as you can see on the map on the right to the screen is our local jurisdictions and programs that we work with. And you can learn more on our commuterchoicemaryland.com website. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of free programs and tools. They are all housed under our baltimorecommutes.org website, which I will drop in the chat. So anyone who's interested, any commuter on the webinar can register on this website for our different programs like Guaranteed Ride Home, ride matching if you're interested in joining a carpool or van pool in the region, and our new Ride Together Rewards program, which I'll share about shortly. And then for any employers on the webinar, if you're interested in joining our free employer partner program, you can email us directly on that email address on the screen, and we can help you get started in creating a commuter benefits program for your team. So next slide, please. So during this past year, we launched the Ride Together Rewards program to help those traveling to the Baltimore area, especially with the increased congestion. This includes a van pool group, a carpool participant, and a transit rider incentive. So in addition, there's also an incentive for employers for providing transit passes to their employees, which is the employer fair share incentive. And you can also learn more about this information through that baltimorecommutes.org webpage. So just a little bit more background on this program. For the Vanpool group, it would give the group $500 off towards that monthly cost for maintaining that van pool. For the carpool participant incentive, it's going to give participants $5 a day for the first 90 days. And the commuter charm pass incentive, it's for new riders to get free transit passes through MTA during select promotional periods. And then the Fair Share Incentive Program, it's for employers. They can receive up to $3,000 to purchase transit passes for their employees. So it's a great program, and we are promoting it right now. So next slide, please. We also have Commuter Cash, which is open to any Baltimore commuter as well as any Maryland commuter in the area. It's an app where users can log their trips and earn rewards. So users can earn up to $600 per calendar year for commuting. Of course, if you're commuting through more sustainable modes of transit like biking, walking, carpooling, you can earn more rewards. So it's a great app as well. Next slide, please. So just to summarize our webinar today, SHA provides traveler information for commutes in key travel days such as holidays and weekends. MTA operates transit modes and services that provide alternatives to driving in the Baltimore region. Commuter Choice Maryland, we offer programs and incentives to help commuters and employers shift to other modes of transportation. And MDTA is hosting a Key Bridge Rebuild community update. So we encourage any attendees on the call today to sign up to participate to learn more about that Key Bridge update. So you can scan that QR code, and that's going to be on December 16th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Next slide, please. So we have another poll for our webinar audience. Which part of today's presentation did you find most interesting and helpful for your commute? So first we have Bruce's presentation from the Maryland Transportation Authority. Second, we have Ray's presentation, which is Maryland State Highway Administration. And then we have Fred's presentation for the Maryland Transit Administration. And then, of course, Commuter Choice Maryland. So once that poll drops in the chat, please feel free. You can also drop your answers in the chat as well. So thank you for answering that poll. It looks like we have a mix of different responses, people interested in all of our different modes and their resources. Looks like, especially for transit and MTA. Yeah, okay, this is really great. Well, thank you so much for your responses. It helps us learn more about what commuters are interested in. And thank you again for our guest speakers for participating in this webinar. So next slide, please. So this is our time for Q&A. Due to limited time, we will prioritize questions related to the content of today's session, and we also encourage everyone to attend the more in-depth community update, which is next Tuesday, which we can drop that link in the chat as well. So it looks like one of our questions, this participant said, where can they find the 3 stages of the bridge rebuild? I think Bruce, this would be for you.
Thanks, Maddie. Yes, that webinar next week on the 16th will go in detail about the different stages of the bridge project. Also, our board presentation materials from November 25th have those. So I can look for a link to that later and try to drop that in the chat that has more extensive slides from our board MDTA board presentation. But it's an interesting project, so we hope you check out the webpage there too. Maddie, do you want me to talk about the 895 toll plazas? Because there's a lot of questions about the toll booth removal.
Yeah,
okay.
That's perfect.
I'm going to drop a project page link into the chat. This is the I-895 toll plaza project that we had in our program. It's a $160 million project total that deals just more with the more than just the toll booth removal project. So it's really a 3-phase project. The first phase we have completed. That was the important part, was getting all the toll collection equipment out of those old booths and shifting them to the north side of the tunnel. So that was phase 1. Phase 2 that we're working on is the reconfiguration of Frank First Avenue, to take care of a lot of the different movement around that section of 895 just south of the tunnel. And then the third phase would be to remove and replace several of the bridges, reconfigure some of the ramps, and then remove the toll booths. So that project is ongoing. What we have done through our engineering studies is try to determine the least impact on commuters along that corridor. There are a lot of comments in the chat about how removing the toll booths would help the traffic flow. Our numbers don't really support that. That tunnel going northbound is still a major restriction point. So you would just have those the vehicles back up there. That said, we're trying to look at that as we move forward, and to, once we get this phase 2 underway, to think through if there's anything else can be done with that plaza. Importantly, we have to worry about the merges on and off of the highway right near those toll booths and make sure it's safe. So until we can get the full complete project done, some of the toll booth removal will not actually be safe movements and wouldn't be allowed by various federal standards. So we are continuing to look at that. We are trying to determine if there's a better way to phase that given the length of time for the Key Bridge. But for now, that 3-phase plan is there for you to look at.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, so it looks like there are other questions. Are there any other questions that you think would be best to address today, Bruce, or do you think most of them should be for the forum for next week?
I saw a question about tunnel cleaning, so I can just say that we do have tunnel cleaning equipment. We have to make sure our temperatures are right so we don't have freezing, after we're washing the tunnels. So, the equipment has to deal with all 4 bores that we have related to the 2 tunnels. So when we have temperatures that can accommodate that, we try to get back in there. I'd also say there's a question about local roads. Ray and the team from State Highways is working with local governments to see if there are eligible expenses related to any road degradation that's going on. It's up to the counties to work with us to show kind of before and after studies, but I probably shouldn't talk any more about that in case SHA wants to address that more specifically.
I'll just add, you hit it well there, Bruce. We are working very closely with local jurisdictions to track the conditions of what the condition of the roadway was prior to the incident, and then any degradation that we're seeing as a result, tracking that and what we need to do there, also on what additional compensation we can get associated with that. So continue to work on those efforts and monitor that on a regular basis.
Thank you, Ray and Bruce. I see another question about commuter bus. Is that anything you can speak to, Fred, about promoting it in the region, especially with congestion?
I think doing things like this is one of the main ways that we're reaching out to folks to make them aware of what Commuter Bus has to offer. So
Thank you so much, Fred. That's great. And I see another question in the chat about Incentrip and Commuter Cash. That is MWCOG's program, so I can get back to you to make sure you will be able to receive a bonus for shifting commutes during peak travel hours. Okay. And it looks like here today, are there any other final thoughts, questions that anyone wants to address? I'll defer to my team here today that's speaking.
Maddie, I'll just mention that I've seen several comments in the chat about different backups, different options to think about. I really appreciate that. I think we can take those to heart and think about some of those. Some of our answers might be that we can't do anything, but if there's something new in there, it's really great to get this kind of community impact, because you all listening today are impacted that you're interested in the solutions in the region. I just wanted to thank you for providing those in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Bruce, for that. And thank you again to our fantastic speakers, Ray, Bruce, Fred. We're really grateful for you to participate today and see the chatter about what everyone is dealing with and how they're interested in their commutes. So thank you again. And then next slide, please. So just to recap, again, if you want to learn more about our Commuter Choice Maryland program, any employers on the webinar today, if you want to sign up for our employer partner program, it is free. You can contact us. I'll show you our contact information on the next slide. Any commuters on the call, if you're interested in learning more about commuting options, different incentive programs that are going on in the state of Maryland, please subscribe to our newsletter and visit our website to learn more. And then next March, we have a webinar on the Maryland Commuter Tax Credit. So for any businesses that are providing commuter subsidies, it's a great way for you to save as well. And then next slide, please. Again, a special thanks to all our speakers today, Bruce, Ray, and Fred, and a special thanks to you all for being here today to participate in our webinar. If there are any topics you are interested in learning more about or have any additional questions, especially about the Key Bridge, please remember the public meeting is next week on December 16th. You can also add your thoughts into the chat and we will review them to help us plan for future programming. And last but not least, please be sure to visit our different social media pages and connect with us at Commuter Choice MD. And on behalf of our Commuter Choice Maryland team, we want to thank you for being here today and being interested in our program. So we hope to see you all on March 12th for our next webinar on the tax credit. So thank you for your time, everyone. And I will drop that Commuter Choice Maryland email in the chat. And again, if you have any questions, we will pass along those questions. And I will give everyone some time back today. So thank you all.